you on this.
Good morning, Doug. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Tony.
So did you get a chance to hear our little conversation with Lyda Cruson earlier this morning?
I did not. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Dealing with kids.
But you won't believe what she said about you. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you'll get another chance.
I might believe it.
You know what? You'll get another chance to listen later on when Steve Stenger joins us at 8:35 this morning. So maybe the kid situation will straighten itself out. You know.
Well, that's always a fun segment.
You know, the thing that strikes me about what you do for the Post is it's politically motivated, I think, in a lot of ways, but there's so much to talk about all the time and write about. I love the lead line in one of your more recent columns here. In some ways, St. Louis County Executive Steve Stenger reminds me of the former Senator Gary Hart, who famously said to the media, "Go ahead, follow me around." Well, they did, and they found out that monkey business was the boat, and there was a young lady involved, and it pretty much killed his presidential campaign. You say there's a sort of a parallel path going on here between Gary Hart and Steve Stenger when it comes to things like this.
Yeah, the comparison that I made between Gary Hart and Steve Stenger is that in his campaign for county executive, Steve Stenger said, "Follow the money." He said the current guy is corrupt because of all the things that he does for donors. Follow the money from his campaign to the official county action. That was how he won election over Charlie Dooley. So I've been doing that with Steve Stenger, and I got to tell you, his connections between campaign dollars and official action are significantly worse than anything Charlie Dooley did. And I find it unfortunate and disingenuous that every time I write about this, and people can follow the paperwork, they can connect dots. That's all I'm doing is connecting dots. He constantly says his response to yesterday's column on Twitter was pure garbage. Now, he didn't argue any of the points. There's never been a correction on any of my columns about Steve Stenger. There's never been one requested. It's purely about following the campaign donations and noting the dates and noting the official action that happens. And it happens significantly. And what this column gets into is two of the more recent things, both of which were reported by Stephen Deere, my colleague on the news pages of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. One is that there is a state law that says if you take donations from people that have contracts with the public subdivision that you represent, you have to note that in your campaign finance reports. And your previous guest, Lyda Cruson, does that in her reports. Various mayors all over the community do this. The previous county executive, Charlie Dooley, did that. Steve Stenger wasn't doing it. And so Stephen Deere presented him with this list and presented him with this law, and County Executive Stenger said, "Oh, I'm not breaking the law, but you know what? We'll go ahead and file some new reports anyway." He was violating the law, and now he is hopefully in compliance and starting to make it easier for voters to see who he's doing business with, and he is frequently doing business with campaign donors. And the other thing that's going on right now that is just really a problem for taxpayers is he's blocking Sam Page, the county council chairman, from hiring the auditor that he wants to hire and from expanding the audit staff. And here's where the Gary Hart comparison comes in again. When Steve Stenger ran for office, he said, "I'm going to have a huge top-to-bottom forensic audit." Well, he never actually did. But he did have somebody perform an audit. It was Brown Smith Wallace, also a donor to Steve Stenger. And in that audit, they said clearly, you know what the county needs, because it does have some problem tracking finances? It needs more auditors. And Steve Stenger is telling the county, the county auditor, you can't hire more auditors, even though the budget has already approved a spot for another staff member. And those things are just facts. And all my column did is point out that there was the Steve Stenger that ran for office who said that following the money is really important.
Tony,
and there's the Steve Stenger who, as county executive, doesn't want anybody to follow the money.
We're going to have to move on, but I have a suspicion that Mr. Stenger, who will be joining us at 8:35, will probably have a rebuttal to your comments here, and I appreciate your time joining us today.
No problem. Thanks, Doug.
Okay,
Talk to you later.
Tony Messenger with the
Tony.
St. Louis Post-Dispatch at 8:29 here on the Big